I've been extremely worried about the Rings of Power because Tolkien's work is so beloved, and in 2022, we can't instantly expect new shows and movies coming out to be good. Too many writers and showrunners make changes they feel represent the times, even if they're concepts and changes we would have never seen in the original work they've got their hands on. And I've covered a lot of controversial comments made by the showrunners of The Rings of Power, and Patrick McKay has made yet another terrible statement about how the show's inspired by Tolkien's work, and well, the show doesn't try to compete with the films. I have a few things to show off, but before we get into the topic at hand, if you enjoy the content that I create, please make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell. Follow me on social media like Twitter or mine so that you can see when my content is posted. And of course, if you do really enjoy the videos and the live streams that I create, please consider becoming a Dark Titan via Patreon for just $1 a month, or support the channel via YouTube memberships. All of the links are in the description, and of course, I do really appreciate all of the support. So I wanted to start off with this MovieWeb article. It says the Lord of the Rings series doesn't try to compete with the films or even other similar series like Game of Thrones. Now, there's been a lot of controversy around what's gonna do better because, of course, the Lord of the Rings of Power, is releasing very close to Game of Thrones, House of the Dragon. I personally will be watching both so that I can talk about them both, but typically I'd say, wow, a Lord of the Rings project, I'm so much more excited for it. Yet with the Rings of Power, it just seems like a giant fan fiction, and that's a major problem. It says Amazon The Lord of the Rings of Power co-showrunner Patrick McKay says the series is inspired by J.R.R. Tolkien and his works only. It says Amazon The Rings of Power is one of the most anticipated television series of the year and is set to premiere this September. As the release date draws near, the promotional campaign for it is in full swing, and the series will headline Empire Magazine's latest issue. J.D. Payne and Patrick McKay serve as the showrunners for The Rings of Power and reveal to Empire that the Lord of the Rings prequel isn't trying to compete with Peter Jackson's trilogy or other fantasy series like Game of Thrones or Harry Potter. Now, it says the Lord of the Rings of Power is inspired by the works of author J.R.R. Tolkien only, and as amazing as Peter Jackson's LOTR trilogy is, the prequel will try to be as original as possible. Now, inspired for me is a major keyword here, and I've said this before. It's not like it's the Lord of the Rings. Look at Gary Gygax. His work was inspired by Lord of the Rings. He didn't take Tolkien's characters and twist them. He created his own characters, his own stories, and Dungeons and Dragons turned out to be awesome. It's great to take inspiration from someone's work, but it's different than twisting their work, which is what the Rings of Power is doing. I mean, this series, from the information we've gotten and the images we've seen, looks like a giant fan fiction, a very high budget fan fiction. Putting non-original characters in a show like this doesn't scream following the source material to me and many other people. So Patrick McKay said anyone approaching Lord of the Rings on screen would be wrong not to think about how wonderfully right Jackson got so much of it, but we're admirers from afar, that's it. The Rings of Power doesn't try to compete with him. Now, the term not a competition is a bit worrying for me because no one wanted it to be a competition in the first place. At the end of the day, it should be about staying true to Tolkien's vision. Look at Peter Jackson, okay? He did take creative liberties, but him and his team stayed true to the vision Tolkien had and the vision of the books. When you go from book to film, there's going to be changes here and there, but as long as the original vision is there, that's what matters. It's not a competition on who's more correct or who creates a better scene or better dialogue. Yeah, we were never gonna know what Tolkien would want is something that they're basically saying, and, oh, you know, we're not trying to recreate what Jackson did, and we're trying to create what we want, is what I take away from these statements, and that is what worries me so much. I don't want to see Patrick McKay's Lord of the Rings knockoff. I want to see the real stories with these amazing characters and great dialogue and beautiful landscapes that are all what Tolkien created. And I, again, understand that, yes, you're not going to get every single little detail to be 100% accurate, but it needs to be as close as possible. While Peter Jackson adapted Tolkien's books directly, which span the Third Age of Middle-earth, the Rings of Power is set in the Second Age. I also have talked about other Lord of the Rings actors coming out saying, I don't know what source material they're using, but it doesn't make a lot of sense that they're calling it the Lord of the Rings, and I also agree. Even Elijah Wood said this in an interview that was recently resurfaced. He said, I don't know why they're calling it the Lord of the Rings, because it's not the Lord of the Rings. That video will be linked down below. But it says some of these changes, which were bound to happen since there isn't much source material to refer to, there's plenty, by the way, may I add, have already received backlash from fans, but it was all necessary to set the series apart from other similar works. However, McKay assures that Tolkien's distinctive vision for Middle-earth won't be compromised. Now, I truly and genuinely would love to believe this, okay? I would love to say, I feel like they're going to do a great job. I'm confident in their abilities, but I'm not at this point. We've seen teasers, we've heard interviews, we've seen images. We're supposed to be getting an official trailer soon, and I'm not feeling confident. I love The Lord of the Rings. I love Tolkien's work. So much of this is so nostalgic to me and just so amazing. But I just don't have any confidence in their ability to create anything half decent. But I'm obviously not the only person who thinks that they are going to screw up the Rings of Power. If we go on over to the official teaser trailer on YouTube, I've talked about this many times on the channel, but it's sitting at 117,000 likes to 1.6 million dislikes with nearly 30 million views. The reception to this has not been positive. A lot of people are not impressed with what we've seen so far, with the interviews that I've been referencing, and I talked about this. The Lord of the Rings actor Viggo Mortensen questions what source material Amazon is using for the Rings of Power series. Even Lord of the Rings actors are coming out saying, hey, I'll watch it, I'll give it a chance, but what are they using for source material here? I don't want this series to come out and be awful. I want it to come out and be really good and it be an amazing Lord of the Rings experience. But when showrunners are admitting that it's essentially not genuine Lord of the Rings, that gets me extremely, extremely worried. I will be watching it when it releases. When we see the official trailer, I will be talking about it on the channel, but that's all that I really had to discuss in this video. Let everyone know your thoughts in the comment section down below. If you enjoyed, please make sure to give it a like, share it, and subscribe to the channel. And of course, if you didn't, make sure to give it a dislike. I appreciate your support either way, but I will talk to you all again in the next video really soon.